it might look like the perfect scenario, it might look like the perfect person, it might line up with all the boxes that you need checked. But if God says no, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. I plead with you, don't do it.
It's better with us two. We're better together.
Welcome to Better Together. Oh my goodness. Welcome. It's episode 22. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling what? Episode 22. Word life. Word is bond. Word. I'm Brad and Brett.
I'm Mina Thomas, Brett.
This is the pod, Better Together. This pod is about faith, relationships, and bridge building. So just really bridge building in every area of your life. And I'm excited because I think this is going to be a really good episode. This is an important topic. This one is going to be big. It's going to be great. But first, we have to do a little housekeeping. Just want to say thank you. So many thank yous to all of our friends and family who've donated to keep the podcast going. We appreciate your support so much.
Yeah, for sure. So appreciated.
Yes.
Truly.
You don't know. The Lord is good and he works through you. So thank you. Also, hopefully by the time you're listening to this, you should be able to go to brettertogether.com. And if you're a single sister, we should have an online course available for you and a community that you can join of like-minded single sisters who are all waiting on God for marriage. We did a live workshop at the end of December, and we're now turning that into an online course offering and a whole community on the back end where you can connect. And it's really cool, really cool. So definitely want to encourage you all to check that out. And we have a lot more coming down the pipeline this year. Ebooks and more courses and workshops and merch. We're going to do merch.
We
just need some merch ideas. I don't know what
let us know what you guys would actually want to see when it comes to merch.
Right.
Do you guys want t-shirts? Do you guys want... Somebody said they wanted a mug with a quote on it. Do you guys want, I don't know, wallpapers? I really don't know what you guys would want in terms of merch. We like t-shirts and sweatshirts and things like that. But what do you guys like when it comes to merch? What would you like to see from us? Also, you guys can go to brettertogether.com and there's a section where you can submit your topic suggestions, and I think it's questions, right?
Yeah.
Or is it just
any topics or suggestions that you have? Yeah, questions you have.
Anything that you think we should talk about, you can get on brettertogether.com and get over there and make your voice heard.
Make it heard.
We have a list of the things that you guys ask about.
Yep.
And we really want to make sure that we're serving you to the best of our ability when it comes to what it is you want to actually hear us talk about.
Yep. Okay. So with that, great segue, babe. We are going to return to our story because embedded in our story are many life lessons that are encouraging to unmarried people who are on that journey as well, but also for anybody, because there are just lots of lessons. And so I'm excited. I think this is going to be a really good episode. One of the things that we've heard the most from our single sisters and single men as well is the question, how do you know if he or she is the one? How do you know?
How do you know?
Oh.
Bless you. How do you know he's yours? I loved that movie when it came out.
That was Enchanted, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was probably the best Disney-esque princess type movie.
Yeah. Disney-esque.
I don't know if it was. It a Disney movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was my favorite Disney.
Disney princess-esque. Yes.
Although Moana 2 was pretty good.
Moana 2 is good.
I haven't seen Moana 2.
No, have not.
My sister's like, you need to watch the first one. I'm like, sorry, I will.
But yeah, how do you know? That's a big one. So you're waiting on God, and then you finally, get in a relationship, but how do you know? I think we have a lot to add to this part of the conversation. And as always, just encourage you to listen to the principles, don't try to copy our story. That's a recipe for failure in life in general.
Oh, for sure.
If you see someone else's path, it's like, oh, I'm going to do it exactly that way.
I've seen it.
Other than
fail
Jesus,
a
that's the
couple
only
times,
one. But
couple
even
few times.
yeah, you don't want to do that with Jesus either.
I mean,
in a way,
metaphorically, take up your cross
Metaphorically.
and follow him,
Right,
but
right.
actually get crucified if you can help it.
Yeah. So, but we hope you find the principles, extract those lessons that can apply to your situation, and as always, take it through the Lord. That's a big deal. But how did we know? So we've talked about how we met. We've talked about our first date. What else have we talked about? Who we were before we met each other. And so we're advancing in the timeline pretty heavily. There was a lot that went in before we knew, right? But I think going into that part of the timeline is cool. And then we'll fill in the blanks as like kind of the process before we got to this point. But
there are people doing the sabbatical thing that we did. I encountered someone on TikTok.
Really?
Yeah, where she said that she was doing 30 days no contact with the guy that she was dating to see if he was the person that the Lord actually wanted her to be with.
That's
and I was
awesome.
like, whoa, there are other people that have actually done this or that are doing this. It's so cool.
That's dope.
And then she had hundreds of comments of people who were like, yeah, I'm doing the same thing. It's so
This was on one of our TikToks? Or just
No, it was somebody else. It's
okay.
It was in my For You page.
Gotcha.
And she was just talking about, it's really difficult to do this. She said, it's like the hardest thing ever.
Yeah.
It is super difficult, especially if the person is actually for you. It's not an easy thing to do. But
no.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that at some point.
Yeah, like how we almost broke up 5 times. So yeah, that'll be a fun video to do. But yeah, let's advance in the timeline. So we meet end of 2013. We're going through different ups and downs, 14, 15, 16. And it's really into 2017 where things start to get interesting as far as us really moving toward a decision, right? We'd been dating, been kind of together long distance for a long time, working through all the ins and outs and challenges of building the bridge between us. Mm-hmm. But it's 2017, really toward the end of 2017, that it really starts to get interesting. Okay, so I am, let me just ask you, how do we want to do this? Let me ask you, when did you know I was the one? And how did you know I was the one? I want to see if our timelines match up for one thing, but yeah.
Oh, man. I don't really love this question because I feel like the answer is cumulative. You know what I mean?
Okay. That'll preach already.
There were multiple green flags that said, this guy is it. And I think I can think of 3 major ones that kind of tie all the rest of them together that culminate in this knowing. And the first one is that you made me laugh. Oh. You disarmed me. Okay. You made me belly laugh. I to the point where I didn't know, I didn't care who was around. I didn't register anyone that was around me. And that was within a week of knowing you.
All right. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was
yeah.
But that wasn't how that was, okay, got you. But that was not when you knew I was the one.
I told you it was cumulative. Can you let me tell my story?
Sorry, babe.
Aren't you over there editing my story? I ain't even finished it yet. You could edit when I'm done, okay?
Word.
So, that was one of the first signs. One of the major ones. Because I'm not easy to make laugh. It's...
Oh, but I had you from the get.
Would you like to tell my side of the story?
No, go ahead. I'm just saying, I did have you, though.
I said that.
I know.
You made me laugh.
But, before a week, though.
I said within the first week.
Within the first week. Okay, my bad.
Oh, my God. gosh. Anyway.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you texted me. You didn't play games with me. I love that. You texted me. I think I hadn't even left Germany yet. So it was in the first
No.
like 24 hours. You texted me talking about something ridiculous. Chuck Norris and Tupac and Hitler under the waterfall in Germany. There was a waterfall in the town where we met. It was like you need context and all the things, but it was so incredibly like irreverent and funny and just out of left field that I literally like bark laughed on the tour bus when I finally read the text. I was like, what is wrong with this man? He is crazy. But it made me laugh so hard. And everybody around me was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I just read something funny, you know. And then the next one was in 2017 where you like I said, it's so cumulative. There's so many events, so many little things, so many big things that led me to believe that you were the person for me. But the next big one was when I was praying. We were praying together. We were on the phone, and we were praying the tabernacle prayer together. And this is when I was like the prayer officer or whatever. I was in charge of the prayer requests at work. And so I would take the prayer requests, and we had a little room that was dedicated to the prayers, and we would tape them up all over the room, and we would track them to see if they had been answered and things like that. And so I had taken the prayers for the day into the room, and I was kneeling, praying the tabernacle prayer with you. And the Lord told me during that prayer that he had given you his heart for me. And he'd never said that about anybody else I dated. And I had prayed over my other relationships, and I would always ask the Lord, if this is not a door you want me walking through, slam it in my face. And he slammed quite a few doors in my face. Not that I had like a ton of relationships, but like even if I was talking to somebody and I'm like, Lord, if this is not something you want, shut it, you know, stop it. And he always would stop it. And for us, he never stopped it. Even when we stopped it and we're like, you know, okay, we're going to take a minute to see what the Lord is saying. He was never the one who was like, this is the end. It was always like, keep going, endure, you know, that kind of thing. So when he told me that he had given you his heart for me, I said, okay. And suddenly a lot of the things that you did and said and the way you treated me made sense, because this is the way Jesus treated me. This is the way I was taught that I needed to be treated by my dad, and the way that he treated me. And so encountering the heart of God in another human for me was, yeah, it was transformational. It was kind of mind shifting. It's the first time I realized that he could do that.
Yeah.
That he could implant his will, his desires, his heart into another person or into your spouse for you. And I was like, oh, this is serious. You know, the whole time we had been praying that, you know, we would somehow get to be together. We loved each other so much, you know, and just praying that the Lord would make a way for everything to work out, that he would show us a plan, that a plan or a scenario that, you know, culminated in us being together and walking toward God together. And we were able to experience that, but we didn't know that at the time. So 2017, like you said, that's kind of when things started really culminating and really starting to like, oh, this is actually possible. And then
it didn't really feel possible in so many ways
previously. No, it was beautiful and changed our lives quite a bit. But up to that point, I think we were both just kind of like, well, maybe this person exists to show me it's possible.
Yeah.
Maybe there's someone else for me who will fit all of the things that I need, even religiously.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know,
Right. Maybe this is God showing us what's possible. The India Ari, he heals me. Those lines hit me in such a way that I cried. I remember the first time I heard him. He said, "No matter how things turn out or whatever,
no matter what,
uh,
turn out, it's all right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
no matter how it turns out,
No matter how things turn out,
it's
it's all
all
right
right
because he's already changed my
because
life.
He's already changed my life." And so
Mhm.
I'd almost resigned myself to that. I was
That's
like,
what it was. However things turn out, it's all right because he's already changed my. She does all the acrobatics.
all the things.
But
Yeah.
no, that I agree. That up until that point, I truly resonated with that song because you coming along did heal me in so many ways.
But was it a means to an end, right? Like that's kind of the
Right. It's
question that
like,
we were.
even if we don't end up together, you changed my life, so thank you, kind of thing. That was kind of where we were mentally. By the time we got to 2018, which was kind of my nail in the coffin, not nail in the coffin, done deal, you know,
Okay.
just waiting on the proposal type of thing was when I had to get emergency surgery and you came and you prayed for me because I always wanted someone who could pray for me when I couldn't pray for myself. And you did, and you demonstrated it in a way that I didn't have to dictate it to you or ask you to do it or teach you to do it or any of the things. Your relationship with God showed up in that moment, and you used your power with God to place me before him, to petition for me. And that was like, okay, because I know the type of life that I am meant to have, the one that I had already lived up to that point. There were several instances in my life where I needed someone to pray for me when I couldn't pray for myself.
Right.
And my parents stood in the gap for me. And I knew that if I was going to leave the covering of my parents and that covering that I had that would allow me to live the life that I was already living and do it with coverage and with protection and with guardians, you know, the people who had given me my DNA, who had given me my identity, they were there in the ways that mattered, especially when it came to being able to fight for me spiritually. So I was thinking, if I'm going to leave that covering, if there's going to be a transfer of responsibility for me, then it has to be with someone who will actually take the responsibility physically, right? Giving me your name and all of those things, but also spiritually, where you are able to take the responsibility that you have spiritually in the spirit realm and actually exercise the authority that I'm giving you by saying yes and submitting to you. I knew that I needed somebody who would know what that responsibility was and be serious about exercising it. And you doing that without me having to ask, without anybody giving you instructions besides the Lord, I was like, all right, this guy really must be it. So those are my three that I can think of right now. Again, there's so many. We did so much prayer, so much fasting, so many different things. Like the way you introduced me to like different what's the word, strategies and different ways to heal. Like it wasn't that you were my healer. You just created the environment that made me feel comfortable to heal. I wasn't always with my guard up, you know, trying to protect myself from you. I didn't have to protect myself from you. And it also meant that somebody else had my back, you know, like we were standing back to back and could watch each other's back.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know, just made it possible for so many amazing things to happen. You were a friend of my mind. So you fostered, you know, the growing of my obsession with scripture and Hebrew and all the things, and because you have such a dedication to learning and absorbing what you learn and also practicing what you learn, it encouraged me to do the same. So you demonstrated yourself as a husbandman to the degree that you could, and it was like, wow, you know. I always tell you I flourish beneath your light because you shine for the Lord, and that light impacts me by giving me a good environment to grow and to bloom. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, so was I on trial?
Were you on trial?
You know what I'm saying? Like, because it seems like, because the prayer thing, like I'm praying for you. So that was something you wanted. So now I check off that box. And so that was
I didn't
part
have
of it.
boxes necessarily.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, he's got to do this. Oh, he's got to do this. There were a lot of prayers you answered unknowingly that I forgot I prayed.
Mm-hmm.
And when you became the answer, I remembered.
Oh.
So it wasn't like I had this like, oh, he better check this box or I'm not saying yes, even if he does propose. It wasn't anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, man, sure would be nice to have this thing. And then you would go and do it. And I never said it to you.
Mm-hmm.
These are prayers that I prayed like, they're the tears in my pillow. They're the things that I'd never said to anyone but God. And sometimes you pray those prayers and you're like, man, Lord, I really need this or I really need that. And I don't know how you're going to do it, but if you could do this one thing for me, I'd really love it. You know, sometimes when you're single and you just feel the strain of being alone and you feel the strain of not being seen, of not having a person that will go to God on your behalf, of not having, you know, the communion with another person that can really like help you understand yourself. Like when you don't have that and you see other people having it, and you know, there's any number of situations and scenarios that can play out in, you know, sometimes you jealous of people for no reason because what they got ain't something you need anyway. But, you know, sometimes you're crying and you're praying and you don't know if the Lord hears you. And sometimes you pray and you forget what you asked for because it came from like the deep, earnest groanings of your heart. And then the Lord answers them when you least expect, and usually by putting them in a person. And sometimes because it's a person, we overlook the answer to prayer.
Yeah. And
you are just a constant answer. Like there's just so many things that I sometimes, so we talked about prayer in our last episode. One of the things that the most common word for prayer, tefillah, means is to think. Like, there's another word for prayer that it's eluding me right now, but it's what Jacob said when he finally saw Joseph again after all those years of thinking he was dead. He said, I never thought, and the word translates as prayer, but it never entered my mind. I didn't even have the prayer in my mind. I didn't even think, you know, that this was possible. And for it to all be possible in one person, it's just unheard. It doesn't enter the mind to think, okay, the Lord's going to make all of this possible and it's going to be all encompassed in one person. It just doesn't seem possible. So I think some of these things were only in my mind.
Gotcha. Yeah,
you know, they were just thoughts. Yeah. Just, it would be nice if this was a thing. Or having like moments of knowing, like you had that moment of knowing that you weren't going to marry a Caucasian woman.
Yeah.
You know, and that shaped your life moving forward.
Yeah.
In everything, you know, for you to name your basketball Trinice. I don't know any white people named Trinice. You know what I mean? Like, you just, you don't even realize how your prayers shape your life, or how those events, those moments go, oh, I think this is going to be a thing. And then you move on and you forget it until it happens. And then you're like, I didn't see that coming, but I guess I hoped it would come.
Yeah.
You know? So you did that with a lot of things. I used to, I mean, writing things down is crazy. Like, what happens when you write things down? Wild. Wild how that, I don't know what the science is behind it. Sure, there's some science behind it. There's definitely spiritual implications behind it, because when you write things down, man, even if it's decades in actually developing and manifesting, it really can.
Yeah.
I used to write these little short stories in my journal. I was trying to write a book. I was going to write a young adult novel about, I wanted it to be like a series because I loved series. I still love series. And in the series, this young lady, I think she was dating a basketball player, and he would pay for her to fly to all these different places and, have these adventures and things like that. And I just thought it would be great, to be with someone like that who would, pay for everything and not expect something from me just because they paid for it.
Yeah.
Like, that they wouldn't equate paying for, lodging and food as paying for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you did that. I never asked you to do that. When we decided we were going to meet up, I just assumed I would pay for my plane ticket. And you did it. I assumed I would at least help. You paid for the ticket, you paid for the food, you paid for the hotel, you paid for everything. It was something that I don't even know if I dared to pray that. But you did it without me having to ask. It was a part of who you already were. That's why I said, like, I wish I'd known that the prayers that I was praying for my husband that were building you. Because maybe you weren't always those things.
No.
But I'd like to believe that my prayers for my husband, no matter who he was, were a contribution to your character.
Yeah, I believe that.
So yeah, I don't know. That's just, I said I wanted someone who could pray for me. That wasn't a prayer. It was just a desire.
Yeah.
I don't know if I even said it to the Lord. That's why I love the way that the Holy Ghost works, because it can be praying things, the Holy Ghost can be praying things through you without you knowing what you're saying, with groanings which can't be uttered. Right. It could be a deep groaning in your heart and you never articulate it in the language you understand. But who knows what you're saying when you're praying in the Holy Spirit. And so, I don't know. There's just so many different things that is like, you did them. You were them. Like they were a part of you.
Yeah.
And you were just being yourself.
Right.
But yourself is for me. So it worked.
Wow. Okay. That's great. Yeah, I think I have a pretty long list of takeaways, because I think I want to share our wins, but then the hows, because I think the hows will be the most important. The wins are interesting. The hows, I think, will be the most beneficial to our audience. But I think the when is like most entertaining. So what you're saying totally makes sense. I think it was probably 2016. I'm not quite sure when we started getting more serious about things, but we also realized we had a lot of differences to reconcile. And so we needed something to help us with that. And so we found this book called Before Your Wedding.
We always recommend it to couples that are about to get married.
Mm-hmm. And full disclosure, we're going to create a version of it that kind of takes the same approach to help people who are considering marriage, So basically the premise was like, ask these questions, have these conversations to find out if he or she is the one, and do this before you get married, not after. So questions around intimacy, finances, relationship with in-laws and family, differences and
money, budgeting,
mm-hmm.
all the things. There's so many things that we don't think to talk about that impact our relationships so much. And we think, oh, we'll just figure it out when we get there. And it's like, why do you want to cross that bridge when you come to it? When so often you have to build it first before you can cross it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So we did that. So multiple topics, 12 different topics, dates, like questionnaires, and so we would fill those out and then we'd come together and discuss. Mm-hmm. And through that process, we began to, our big list of differences started paring down to some little, a smaller list of, okay, can we live with this? Can we reconcile this? Can we get through this? Mm-hmm. And so I think that was really instrumental in moving us in the direction of marriage. It's obviously by the time if you're doing before your wedding, that's the
yeah, we weren't even engaged yet, but we did it so that we could get to know each other better.
You had to get to know each other and get to the point where we felt like we could get engaged if we were going to, which I think it's way beneficial, to do before you get engaged. So we went through that, and that got us to a point where, okay, I feel like we're learning how to have crucial conversations. We're learning how to work out differences, and we've got kind of a short list of things. Mm-hmm. And now let's take the short list to the Lord. And Lord, can you reconcile this? Can you make this happen? And also through that, it helped us to address concerns that we had with one another, to talk those out. I love this quote from Joseph Grenny. He says, "Whatever you don't talk out, you act out." That's really good. And so I'm grateful we talked things out, and it's benefited us so much because we haven't had to act those things out, it's been really good. So, but we did have a short list. And so it became that list that we started kind of tackling and wrestling with the Lord on, and those differences that we had. And frankly, some things where there are things about our characters that we both needed maturity on, we both needed the Lord to shape us more. And so, yes, we loved each other, and we wouldn't have kept the relationship going through all of the obstacles if we didn't love each other. But it was, I think the prevailing narrative was this: she's who I want, Lord, that she's everything, that I think I could have wanted, but I'm going to give her up. I'm going to Isaac this situation, and, or like that India Ari song, however this turns out, it's all right, because you've already changed my life. Like, you came into my life for this reason, or for a series of reasons. I came into your life for a series of reasons, but the Lord has other people for us. And this was just to expand our possibilities and let us see what was actually within God's wheelhouse of what he could do for us. So I think that's where we were at. But then a few things happened that changed that. So what I have, man, there are a few things that were really interesting. I think it was 2017, the summer of 2017, my visit to Pennsylvania. Something shifted. I can't explain it, but it was then that my journal entries started taking a totally different tone. It wasn't a tone of, Lord, is it okay if I marry her? Is it within your will if I marry her? It took on the tone of, Lord, I want to marry her. Can you give your confirmation? And that's a totally different prayer. I
want you to want me.
Oh, God. Right. Okay. So that happened in the summer of 2017. And so I have a journal entry, 2017, September. That was when I decided that I wanted that I for sure, you're the one. That's when I made that decision. But I was still waiting on the Lord for his confirmation of the decision. So I will go back in a little bit on how I feel like I got to that point where I'd made that decision. I think it'd be very beneficial to talk about that.
Man, that visit was something.
Yeah, I'm not quite, well, there are a lot, it's very cumulative. But I got to that point where that's what I decided I wanted. And then I had a friend who, this kind of shifted me as well. His name's Sean, and he fell in love with a girl. They got engaged. And I believe it was during the engagement that she got in a car accident or something and died. Or no, I believe they got married. It was in the first year of their marriage. This was the love of his life. And so either way, I can't remember exactly, but he told me, he said, life is too precious to wait. If you've got the one, don't wait. I was like, wow, that just really shifted my perspective, because we were talking about you and the whole thing. And he said, listen, this is my story. And if life is too precious, don't wait. And so that kind of put some urgency on it. I have in my notes, and I guess this is a big takeaway. The pressure on marriage is huge. It's the biggest decision you're going to make outside of your relationship with God. That decision, number one. But number two, like the most important, the thing that will have the biggest impact on who you are and what you become in your entire life is who you marry. So there's a lot of pressure on it, for good reason. And so because of that, I kept records, and the Lord had me go back into my history and just start putting a list together of divine evidences and milestones within our relationship. So I have a full timeline starting from when I was the first entry I have is way back in, I put it as 1990, I believe. It doesn't matter what the date was, but 1990s. Bryden always knew he was not going to marry Caucasian. 1990s, Mina always liked white guys and thought Justin Timberlake and George Clooney and Richard Gere were attractive. Little things. I would write those synchronicities down. I'd write down every revelation. I would write down every evidence, every experience.
Write down that I knew that who I was going to be with was going to be a baller? Did you ever write that down?
No. That did not make my list.
Yeah,
what?
I always knew that.
Always, yeah, okay, I'm adding that.
I knew that from probably, I think the first time I was aware of it was junior high.
Interesting. See, but these were the things I was paying attention to.
Mm-hmm. Of course, I didn't know how that was going to manifest. Right. Like he played college ball, and I didn't know how I knew. I just knew. Yeah. It was just one of those things, one of those knowing moments.
Yeah, totally.
I love this timeline thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know you had that.
15 pages.
I know, but I didn't know it was like timeline.
Yeah. All the way. It's totally chronological. So
have you ever sent it to me?
No, I don't think so.
Do you not want to?
I don't know.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay. But in short, I think that was one of the most helpful things the Lord told me to do, was to, because I was taking this decision so seriously, and because I knew that who I married was going to impact my relationship with him, and I just had to be aligned with his will. So, so there was inspiration, revelation, dreams, just serendipities and congruencies and resonance, experiences, evidences, realizations, just like epiphanies that came, physical answers that I can't explain any other way. Like when I was, considering breaking up with you and your mom calls me after the 2-week sabbatical or whatever. And there were also like words of prophecy and knowledge, and and so I put all that together, and so I'd been keeping that all the way up until September 2017. That's when I decided to get married, and then after that, my friend told me, life is too precious to wait. So that really shifted things for me. But on December 11th, 2017, that's when I have you getting your confirmation that our marriage is going to happen.
Was this in Haiti?
Yes.
When I was in Haiti?
Yeah, you got the confirmation the marriage was going to happen. That was different than getting the confirmation that I was the one, and like this was that the decision had been ratified, right? So now we're in December 2017. I'd made the decision. You knew it was going to happen, and but my ultimate confirmation didn't come from the Lord until May of 2018. And I was it was after a day of fasting, and I wasn't even fasting about our relationship, but it just came out of and I think it was good that I wasn't fasting about a relationship, because it came out of nowhere. I was ending the fast, praying. I was sitting there just writing down anything the Lord wanted to give me, and he just knocked me over the head and said, "You have to marry her. Can't you see what I'm doing?" He said, "Get married to her, and I will work out all of the eternal details." So that was when
Wasn't there something else about how you won't be or become? Can you read it? You have it?
Yes, I have it. Let's see. It said, let's see, May 2018. All right, he said, get married to Mina. She is the perfect fit for you. She is absolutely meant to help you walk this out, to walk life out. You guys will build something amazing together. You've got to marry Mina. She is mine. She is yours. Trust me. I will work out everything else. I'll work out all the eternal details. I will work it all out and give her and you the necessary revelations. And, there's a big component of, like my LDS-ness, and just the whole, all those things, about the concept of eternal marriage and stuff like that, and so I just knew in that moment that if eternal marriage was a real thing, the Lord would work that out. If I was to join your church or you were to join my church or we were to do something else, the Lord would work that out. I didn't know any other details other than he told me to get married to you. It was, this has to happen. Can't you see what I'm doing? That's what's not written there, but that's literally what he said was, can't you see what I'm doing here? You have to get married to her. You've got to marry her. So anyway, so that was really interesting. So I got that in May 2018. What are you smiling for?
A few things.
Okay. Go ahead. What are you smiling for?
I just feel like teasing you.
Why?
I'm not going to, but I feel like teasing you.
Why would you? What would you tease me about right now?
Because your friend said, life is precious, don't wait. And then you waited 2 years. That's why I said it.
That's not 2 years. It wasn't 2 years.
2017, we got married when?
2019. That's
2 years. 2017, 2019, 2 years.
I proposed to you.
Oh, you waited a year. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. You are wild for this. This is crazy. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm sharing something beautiful with you and you trying.
That's what I was trying not to.
That's what you're thinking over there,
messing
though.
with me.
That's funny. All right.
No, I was another thing that was I just was smiling because it was sweet. She is mine. She is yours.
Mm-hmm.
That's sweet. The Lord's sweet.
Yeah, he is very sweet. That's very sacred. Lord, I hope that was okay to share. Yeah, it was a very, very special experience. But literally 15 pages of divine evidences and milestones that culminated in the decision. And then after that, I still had to work through some things.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up writing a letter to my family, writing a letter to my church leaders to explain, because this was a big deal for me to marry outside of the LDS tradition.
You're a poster boy.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and your trust within the leadership and the hierarchy matters, right? So those relationships matter to me. And that's, I had to overcome what other people thought of me in a big way. So I wanted to explain to them, hey, there's a big process that went into this. The Lord is doing something different, and it's probably not going to make sense to you. But they were also supportive, and someday everybody will see. I think the Lord I think He's made that known to me that there will be vindication someday when everybody will understand what He was doing, but through us, but also through everybody else. We'll get it someday. I can't wait for Him to show us what He was doing when we judged other people for the decisions they were making, and we judged their book by the chapter they were in. I can't wait for the Lord to show all of us what He was doing, and that He was truly being the author and the finisher, and He was weaving something different that we could see, that we couldn't see. So anyway, so that was good. Anyway, so that was May 2018. That's when I got my confirmation. You didn't get yours till July 29th. There's no hierarchy in this. I'm just saying.
Oh, kind of sounds like it.
No, but you knew the marriage was going to happen, but you got your confirmation of our marriage being okay in July. So it's by July of 2018 that we both know this is going to happen, and now then we have to pick up the story.
What was this after? During your visit or after the surgery?
I think it was after the surgery. That was also a big moment.
It was huge.
For you, but also for me, because to that point, your attitude toward motherhood, that was an important thing for both of us, what our attitudes were. And you weren't really all about it that much. But then when your ability to have a child was threatened, that was something that I talked to the Lord about. I was like, Lord, I think I'm supposed to, that my wife and I are supposed to have children, and I don't want that to be a owner's thing. But if that's something that is supposed to be in my future, then, and with Mina, then you're going to have to take care of that. And he totally did. Like, that was, wow. Like, we both felt it after your ability to have children was threatened with that surgery.
Yeah, you told me that that's one of the reasons you came, because you thought our future family was in jeopardy.
Oh, that's what I was there fighting for. I was fighting for you, but I was also fighting for our posterity. Like, and I had some interesting experiences. I saw some things that I hadn't seen before. Like, there were spiritual entities there to destroy our seed. And so I was there on a mission. So that was really interesting. So the Lord shifted our perspectives there. So that takes you up to July 29th. We didn't get married or engaged until February of 2019. So there's a little bit of time in between there, and we'll fill that gap in a future episode. But I think the other really big thing, and I can't exactly pinpoint when this happened, but when I knew I could trust you to run toward God regardless, and when you could trust me to do that same thing. I've said this so many times in episodes, like that triangle, when we were both going toward God, the same point. And I knew that you would, because you just exhibited this pattern over and over again, that you would let go of whatever you need to let go of, and absorb and adopt whatever you had to adopt to know him. Then I just knew that it was your attitude, your posture toward change and toward transformation into Christ, and your hunger for him that would allow us to get married. And it was my hunger for him that would allow us to get married, because that would become the unifying point. And it's totally played out that way. We still are on that journey, and it's going to be a lifelong and possibly eternal thing, where we're just continually, conforming into his image and letting go of those things that need to be let go of. And so when I knew that was the key. So that happened somewhere along the line to allow me to make that decision and get the confirmation. So yeah, again, it's just interesting. Like, when you get to the point of asking the Lord to ratify a decision, that's kind of a different point. But I had to feel like the decision was aligned with him first. So there was just a lot to it. So that becomes the next question. Like, how, and I guess what pointers or advice would you offer to anybody about how to know if he or she is the right one? Like, what are some nuggets from our story, or just even from your wisdom?
This is in another episode that we have, but it's the quote that where there's love, there's always miracles. There are always miracles. Where there is love, there are always miracles. I would say look for the miracles. Look for the green flags. There's going to be red flags, there's going to be green flags, but look for them. Look for...
that's a good point.
Look for God in that person's body. Look for the heart of God in their actions toward you. Especially if it is a female trying to decide, do I submit to this man's covering or lack thereof? Do I give up the covering I have for the one being presented to me? Are they comparable? Is one better than the other? And it takes an evaluation process. You have to take the blinders off and really see. So I'd say, truly ask the Lord for guidance.
Yeah.
And, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. He gives freely and upbraideth not, right? Like, he doesn't hold back if you ask him.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't ask because we're afraid of what his answer will be. Because on some level, deep down, we already know that the answer is no. Or we are so afraid because we've made the wrong decision before that it's it's only a matter of time before he's just going to snatch this person from me too, And so it really helps if you are kind of Abrahamic about it and willing to give up whatever it is, willing to give that person up for whatever God's best is for you.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
just, I know it seems so cliche, but prayer and fasting are your friends when it comes to making decisions, especially a decision this big.
Yes.
The Lord will absolutely partner with you if you welcome him into the decision-making process. He's not going to just leave you dangling out there if you approach him and ask earnestly. I know that sometimes people only ask once and they're like, oh, they're so discouraged, but sometimes asking is something that you have to do over and over again. When it talks about ask and it shall be given to you, that ask is ask and keep on asking, right? Seek and keep on seeking, knock and keep on knocking. You almost have to be, you have to be persistent when it comes to, especially a decision like this. This is not a one question, a one and done type of thing. This is something that you constantly need to be paying attention to when you're in that stage of the relationship. You know, take a sabbatical, go away from them and see if like, hey, we haven't talked for 30 days, but I still want to talk to you. Because sometimes, just for me, I don't know how females are these days, but for me, as for me and my house, just kidding. As for me, I am out of sight, out of mind.
Ooh,
I don't know. It had to be God that made a long distance relationship work for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
It had to be God.
Yeah.
Because I am out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Like, truly. Especially during like a sabbatical that lasted, I could just not think about you.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably like some kind of coping mechanism or something so that I don't miss the person or whatever. I can literally just turn it off.
Yeah.
This is how I mean, my family is one of our, it's a gift overextended, but we can cut folks off like that.
Yeah.
No issues, no problems. Just cut you off. You don't even know you cut off. I'll talk to you and you don't have the same access to me that you had before.
Yeah.
And for us to be in a relationship like that for so long and for you to make your presence feel so present when you were absent in body, like that was wild. And it had to have been God. It just meant we were built for each other because literally I could easily just not talk to someone for a long time and it wouldn't bother me. You know, I could be away from you for 5 seconds and I'm like, dang, I miss him already.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of tension kept us, you know, very engaged in each other's lives, even though we weren't present with each other. So if you go away from the person you're with and there's still that spark when you come back together, that's a really good sign. Because sometimes you can do this. I saw in the TikTok that I was watching where the girl was, you know, on a 30-day break from her boyfriend or whatever. And there were people in the comments who were like, girl, I did the same thing. And it resulted in a new, more healthy relationship. And that other one ended.
Right.
Because
it
was enough time and space for them to just separate from the person.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
And maybe the way you feel about the person is just lust, you know? Maybe it's just a strong desire, but it's not necessarily ordained of God, you know? We've been getting a lot of comments, not a lot, but we've been getting comments from people who are like, yeah, your story is basically a fairy tale. And the problem with that is that people don't really get married like that. People don't do that. You know, most Christians don't do that. Right. The only reason that you can't have what I have, and not necessarily exactly the same thing, but something like this for your life, the only reason you can't have it is because you don't think it's possible and you won't submit to God enough for it to happen. I don't know if God created certain people to be single and that's it and they're not supposed to be with nobody. I don't know if that's the thing because the scripture says that it's not good for man to be alone. Paul said, you know, he would that we just all be single like him.
Yeah.
But he said that. That wasn't like he was, you know, this is what God said right here. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know. obviously there are certain people who never can get married. Some people who are born and only live to be 10, and things like that. But I think if you want it, if it is a desire that God planted in you that you agree with, it's possible.
Yeah.
And it takes patience, it takes work on you, but it's possible. And so,
and like all things, like if he's planted that desire in you and you agree with it, then he's going to use it to help you achieve the prime directive of becoming like him, becoming one with him, being in a right relationship with him. So he's going to use it to help you develop and flourish.
right.
And that is also part of marriage.
That's what marriage is for anyway.
Family life is the laboratory for becoming like God. Like it's where you get to practice all of the attributes and traits in real time, for real. And marriage is definitely that, which is why he compares his relationship to the church with marriage. It's the most intimate relationship. It's the one that gets to kind of trespass into you and become one with you. It's like one flesh, like it's the one that that he uses the most to shape your character into his image.
Trespass is crazy.
Yeah, trespass is wild.
That's egregious. So what was the question again, just to make sure that I answered it thoroughly?
Like how what advice would you give for anybody who wants to know how to know if he or she is the one, or like how do you know if he or she is the one? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Look for the miracles. Pray and fast. And look for God's heart for you in their actions.
Yes.
And in how they treat you when they're not in your presence.
Okay.
Because sometimes you can get with people who, will be really good about hiding certain things when they're with you. But an examination of their friends, an examination of their, their pastimes, their hobbies, the things they're interested in, that kind of stuff will clue you into who they are when no one's around.
Oh yeah.
Character is what you are
when character is what you are when no one is watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good.
So,
which is another reason for not, unless the Lord tells you, not doing it fast food style, like give it time. You got to examine, analyze people's behavior patterns and stuff like that. Because how many people get fooled into marriage?
Ooh.
It happens. I've heard it happen all the time where they were so good, both parties on their best behavior. And then when they get married, the one says, okay,
now I can unpack all my baggage.
Yep. And they go back to...
You thought they had a little carry-on and they brought a wardrobe.
Right.
Baby.
Or like, you hear it with guys, like who are just on their best behavior for the woman and courting. But once they have them, the conquest is over and they get married and they just start gaming 24/7. All these things, or even other patterns of abuse or things like that come out from either party. It's like, yeah, to the best of your ability, trying to figure all that stuff out ahead of time. That's why that Before Your Wedding book was so helpful, to talk it through, and then giving our relationship time. Again, the number one principle in all this is to follow the Lord.
Yeah.
To hear his voice.
If you know what his voice sounds like, it should be a lot easier for you to ascertain what it is he wants you to do. Regardless of what you see with your eyes, it might look like the perfect scenario, it might look like the perfect person. It might line up with all the boxes that you need checked. But if God says no, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. I plead with you. Don't do it. This could mean life or death for you. Don't do it. It can mean the realization of your purpose, or you dying with your purpose still in your chest. Don't do it. Please don't do it. Because I've seen it happen. Your destiny helper, your number one destiny helper is your spouse. If they are in competition with you, if they are apathetic about why you are here, don't do it. If they do not compliment what you do, and I'm not saying give you compliments, I mean, if your blueprints are not complementary. You need to examine that with the Lord. Because the Lord does not put people together in marriage so that they can be happy. Happiness is a natural byproduct of being in his will. When the Lord puts people together, it's for kingdom. Lively stones, fitly formed together. We are organisms that fit together because what we are meant to do in the kingdom goes together. The stone next to you needs to be a similar kind of stone so that they fit together to build what God is trying to build. We are called trees planted by the rivers of water if we're a righteous person. Plant cells look like blocks. They look like building blocks. What the Lord is really building is a garden full of these trees planted by the rivers of water with leaves that don't wither, with prosperous hands. And if the orchard you plant yourself in doesn't have the same kind of fruit as you, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be confusing. And so, does your marriage build kingdom? Can God pitch his tent between the two of you and use it as a vehicle to bring heaven to earth? That's what you need to be looking for.
Wow.
Because if you don't, it can literally kill you. It can mean the death of your physical body, of your spiritual being, of your relationship with God. It could suck you dry. It rob you of hope. Like if you hear me say anything, hear this. God puts people together for kingdom. Marriage is for kingdom. You will be happy because you're in his will, but his initial purpose is kingdom. It's why he made the first man and the first woman. If the relationship you are in, no matter how nice he is, no matter how kind he seems to be, if it does not build kingdom, it needs a serious evaluation process. If it does not build kingdom, it will not serve its purpose. And things that do not serve their purpose are eradicated. They don't survive. The survival of your marriage depends on whether or not it's couched in kingdom.
Dang. Hey, that's good. Don't ignore the red flags you see in the other person.
Don't ignore your own red flags, okay?
Don't ignore the red flags you see.
Sorry.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. But don't ignore the red flags you see in other people. And especially don't ignore red flags the Lord gives you. If he told you not to do it, and that was clear, then don't do it. Don't do it. I mean, you got to know what you're signing up for. You just got to know,
I've had a front row seat to watching
I have too.
people's lives implode and explode.
Yeah.
Because they didn't listen.
Yeah.
I don't know what fear it is that has to have you so afraid that will make you make a decision like that.
It's the fear of being alone. I think for a lot of people, a lot of men and women, I've seen it.
I guess there's people who just don't like being alone. I get it.
Well, that's the ultimate thing. That's when you like trace it down to its root. The fear of death is actually fear of being alone.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest fear, apparently, right?
Yeah.
So it's all fear of being alone.
Afraid of being alone.
Because if I do this, I'm going to be alone. If I don't get married to this person, I'm going to be alone.
And if I'm alone, I'll die.
If I'm alone, I'll die. And if I die, I'm alone. So I get it. And I have so much compassion. This is not easy. For some people it is, and awesome. But for many people it's not. And you might be struggling right now, just wrestling with God. Like, is he or she the one? Is this the right situation? I see these red flags, but I see these green flags. Can this be reconciled? I'm not sure, Lord. I don't have clarity, and I can't even discern your voice from my own voice. And is the devil speaking to me? Like, you have all these questions. So it is not easy. That's why I think you have to be patient. You have to take time. You have to wait on God. If there's anything you can learn from our story, I think that's what you can learn, is that we definitely took our time and we sought him, and we had a lot of information, a lot of distractions even coming at us, but we documented. As you can see, I documented 15 pages worth.
I mean, I wrote stuff down, but not that. Not 15 pages.
But that was an anchor for me. So I could go back and say, the Lord said this on this date. So when I'm doubting it on this date, I could say, no, he said it on this date. You know what I'm saying? Or when somebody else says this or speaks this, like, no, there was a thread that I could track, and it really helped me a lot. So I think that would be one thing I would say is, if you're into that, document. It's a big deal. Yes. Documenting, especially what the Lord's telling you. That's really what I documented more than anything. It was divine evidences, and whatever revelations there were. I wrote those down. I just treated those as really sacred nuggets of heavenly wisdom, and because I want to align with that. So I think that's a huge one. I think that having the hard conversations before you get engaged or before you get married is critical. Don't wait to have those conversations about sex, finances, family, religion, all those things. Have them. If you need a guide in that process before your wedding book is dope, we're going to come out with something that will help you with that. I would absolutely recommend that. Fasting and prayer. Above all, follow God's voice. Learn his voice. Follow it with exactness. Be ardently obedient. I mean, that's when I'm kind of struck, as imperfect as I am, I'm kind of struck by how obedient I was to him during this time. This is when I learned the return and report relationship, like I would have with a boss, right? Your boss gives you an assignment, you go do it, you report back, get the next one, That's when I learned that. And so I would write down, he'd give me battle plans, and I'd go and fulfill all those things and go back and say, okay, Lord. And just by following those instructions line upon line, it finally led us to each other. But more importantly, it led us both to him. And so he was able to ratify the decision we made to get married. I think the sabbaticals are important. I think evaluating really hard your feelings and your motives, like you mentioned, because you might be just experiencing hormones. So taking a step back, don't be afraid of sabbaticals, because if you love something, let it be. If it comes back, then it was meant to be. If it doesn't, then it wasn't. That helped me get out of a few relationships. I let it go. And then it didn't come back. I was like, okay, I'm good. While I'm here and while she's present with me, there's something there, but it wasn't strong enough to withstand time or distance. So that was helpful. So our sabbaticals actually helped strengthen our bond and helped us to see that this is more real. So I'd recommend sabbaticals on occasion if you're doing it to seek the Lord. I think another huge one was learning how to have crucial conversations. Get the book, Crucial Conversations, the best book out there on a framework for how to have those conversations where it's high stakes and it seems like a lot's on the line. I would definitely recommend that. Patience. Wildly important. Let's see. I had a lot of people praying for me. People laying hands on me, giving me blessings and all that kind of stuff. That was really important. Yeah. I took the time to journal and sort through my feelings and figure out what I want, what I don't want. I did a lot of that work before we met each other, but I kept it going. And then another huge one that I did in my journaling process was I was able to track from previous relationships self-sabotaging patterns. Ooh. Things that kept coming up that killed previous relationships. And I was able to recognize those same when they crept up in our relationship. I was able to get with the Lord and say, Lord, why does this happen every time I get to this point in a relationship? I get this crazy anxiety. Why is that? Why is it hard for me to commit? And by getting with him on it, he was able to let me know what that was. And so when it came up in our relationship, because it did, I was able to overcome it, which is really interesting. That fear of commitment that anxiety around commitment.
When did that come up?
I can't remember. I think it came up a couple times, but it was a pattern that was running that I'm sure other people in my family generationally had to deal with, but I was able to overcome it. And also part of that, another thing is, and I can't wait to do this. We're going to come up with a program for this. The Hollywood detox, man. Like we gotta detox our expectations. Because I had this Hollywood expectation of what a relationship was supposed to feel like all the time. Because that's what is 2 hours. Yeah, you get your 5 or 10 minutes of controversy, but then the rest of it's whatever, right? Beautiful and happy and cloud nine. And that's just not what a relationship is. It doesn't feel like that 24/7. And so when I was able to adjust my expectations to something more in line with truth and reality, not lowering them or settling, but realizing that I was just in a whole different stratosphere of what feeling like this. I'm just supposed to be goo goo gaga or whatever at all times. And that's not what we were experiencing because we were working life out. We were doing life together. You know what I mean? The spark was there. Make no bones about it.
Make no mistake.
Make no mistake. But yeah, I think you have to adjust your expectations. So that's a big one as well. So bring all these things together. And also the last one I put down here was even using the time to work through your own emotions and your own sinful patterns, because that can obstruct your ability to hear sometimes,
And this, I know that people like to call it different things: generational trauma, generational curses, generational patterns. But if you look at your bloodline and you see that everybody that is like you, every female in your family is single or has children but is single. If you look at your family and see that everyone is divorced, if you look at your bloodline, you should be able to pick up patterns that you're running that you don't even realize you're running. And one thing about marriage is that marriage is a covenant. If you are going to enter in to a covenant with someone, then all of the other covenants that you have made with your body, with your mouth, with your vows, those covenants need to be nullified. Now, sometimes people get married and they still have these covenants that are going on, right? But if you aren't married and you don't have any prospects, or you aren't married and you have prospects, one of the most amazing things that you can do to set yourself free, regardless of who you're going to marry or whatever, is to get with the Lord and figure out, what are these covenants that I have, even if they come from my bloodline that I didn't agree to it. I didn't make the covenant myself. All I did was kind of get grandfathered in, and I don't know how I got here. I don't know what's going on. If you ask the Lord to reveal those things to you, you will be surprised what he will show you.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the things that you can do to interrupt generational patterns that are keeping you locked into a cycle of many different things. You need to examine your bloodline. Even if, you have someone that you're with, and like you said, you were running patterns that you were like, how come I'm doing this? This self-evaluation, self-judgment is one of the definitions of prayer. Is being able to judge yourself, get with the Lord and be like, what is going on here? Why am I single? Why am I doing this? Why am I XYZ? If you get with the Lord and actually allow him to educate you about the things that he can see in the spirit that you are not privy to, because it's been generations since any of these things were actually enacted. If you get with him, he will reveal these things to you. He'll do it in ways that maybe you aren't even on your radar, but he'll do it because it is his will that we're free. He doesn't want us to remain bound. Especially if we're unaware we're bound, even if, you get married and you have all these patterns and curses and things and you don't break them before, they can play a role in your marriage. They can absolutely sabotage it. I think that's one of the reasons for divorce, is the unseen things that we have agreed to that we don't even know we've agreed to. Or we don't remember we've agreed to. I was talking to my sister-in-law about, she's been really diving deep into covenants that we make and the permissions that we have released in the spiritual realm that we don't understand are there, and even vows that we make with our mouths. She was telling a story about a young lady who was dating this guy. He was the love of her life, and they were, just really, really, what did you say, goo goo gaga?
Goo goo gaga.
They were just really gaga over each other, and they were very, very much intertwined. They made a vow with their mouths to each other. And they were in high school.
Yeah.
And they said, let's just make a vow that we'll never be with anyone else except each other, that will always be there for each other, that will always, that we won't be with anyone else. And they went to the young man's father and asked him, like, how can we make this so that, this vow is actually real? Like, we want to make sure that we don't ever have to release each other. And this man said, cut your wrists and drink each other's blood. Now, this woman,
what?
Years and years down the line, she's like married, and she comes to this guy who's an expert on spiritual warfare. She comes to him, she's like, I'm married. I really think my husband's handsome. He's amazing. He's wonderful. I really love being with him. I love our family, everything. But when it comes time for us to be intimate, I have to fake being interested in him. And she's like, I don't want to do that. I want to be like invested in that part of our relationship, but it's just hard for me, and I don't know how. And he started asking her questions about her life. And they get to the point where she's in school. I guess he must have asked her about her love life or something. And she tells him about this relationship that she had. And come to find out, she'd made a vow with her mouth, a blood covenant with this young man that's still in effect. Like a decade or so later, like years and years later. Wow. She's married in a completely different covenant with this person. She made a covenant on top of this covenant, but the covenant was still in effect.
Wow.
Come to find out, throughout the process of the conversation, the young man tells her, I'm a snake, which is like some kind of witchcraft designation. He tells her, I'm a snake, and I put myself inside of you, and you will never be free of me. You'll never be able to be with anyone else. You're just always going to have to be with me. If you leave me and you are with someone else, I'm always going to be there. I will be between you, basically.
Dang.
Come to find out in process of the conversation, the young man's father is like the head warlock of the region or something like that. And that's the reason why he told them to make a blood covenant. And so, of course, he initiated his son into witchcraft. And she made these covenants when she was a child, basically. She was old enough in the spiritual realm. She was 18. She made these covenants. Wow. She forgot about them. And then she went on with her life. When they started praying over her, came to the point where she needed deliverance. And what did she begin to act like? A snake. Now, some people don't believe in deliverance.
Holy moly.
If you don't believe in deliverance, I can't help you. I don't know what to tell you. But I've seen it. I've seen it happen. I've been involved. It's real.
Wow.
She was following Jesus and all these things. She was in a marriage, and the covenant was still in effect. So we need to also examine, if you are married, examine your past, examine your life, like really look at it through the eyes of the Spirit and see. Sometimes we make vows because we've been hurt and say, I'm never going to be hurt like that again. Yeah. And it means that you shut your heart off to anybody who tries to approach. It means that you are the one who's controlling the narrative, and then nobody else can contribute. And that turns people off when they try to come close to you. All kinds of different things that we could be running, patterns and covenants and things that we have enacted that we don't even realize we've done.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's something that we need to do too. It's just...
Yeah. No, that's huge. That's big. So, man, we've given you a lot, and hopefully chew the meat, spit out any bones. We recognize our story is our story, but some of the things we've said are just like general principles. And so we hope you at least got one or two things out of this and the Lord is able to speak to you, because it's not easy. We're not going to say it's easy. There's a lot of effort involved, a lot of spiritual work, but the Lord is ecological. He's very efficient, and he will use this to develop every area of your life and help you become more one with him, which is the ultimate objective anyway. So, it's an exciting journey, and we pray for anybody who's on it. I'm grateful that we're not on this phase of the journey anymore, but we have, once you get married, you enter into whole new journeys, a whole new phases of journeys. So
I'm glad we ain't in this phase either. Just because of, man, I really feel for people who are single.
For sure.
In this day and age, in this era, in our society, and all the things, like it is
to cut through a lot.
It's so difficult to be you, and we salute you for trying, for wanting to do what the Lord has impressed upon your heart to do, and also for wanting to become a better version of yourself. Yeah, like good on you. We salute you, we applaud you, and we're here to come alongside you as much as we can.
Yeah, and also we'll say it till we're blue in the face. Like, just know that your worthiness with God or in life, your meaning and purpose in life is not contingent on your marital status.
Amen.
And so there's no feeling of inferiority, superiority within anything that we say. You're not a second-class citizen because you're single, but our society would like to make you think that way. And that was part of what I had to overcome and what was difficult. I think the thing that I am grateful for the most is what marriage has unlocked for my development and just to have your companionship. Because it did get lonely. And then also the other thing was just feeling like you're always on the market, and every relationship, everybody's trying to get to you, and you're always analyzing every relationship based on marriage potential, and that can be exhausting as well. So just continue to focus on God and your relationship with him, on your personal development, and whatever he's telling you to do within that circle of partnership. And then working on all of your other relationships as well. This is a great time to be trying to get alignment in all the circles of your relationships.
Yes, I was just thinking that. Proper relational alignment. We call it PRA. Listen, it's needed.
So, all right. Well, I think we should wrap up. This is great. Good episode. We hope you're enjoying this. Thank you for listening, subscribing, following, liking, all the things, man. Appreciate it. We always love your comments. We try to get in there and get to everybody, but it's not always the easiest.
Yeah, especially when you guys are like running these videos up to 400 and 500,000 views. Like, y'all.
It's crazy, man.
Keeping up with 700 comments.
Yeah.
Not a thing.
But we're grateful.
So grateful for you guys. Oh, okay. I have one quote.
Oh, okay. Get a quote.
I knew you were the one when I realized your smile was my heaven, your laugh my favorite song, and your arms my home. Steve Mirabile said that.
All right, Steve.
And that's something that we always say to each other, is that you're home.
You're home.
I think you're how I realized that home was not a place, but a person. I love you.
I love you too. All right.
Okay. Congratulations. You made it to the end of this very long episode.
Word life.
Since you waited, we have something for you. And that is a smile for your face.
Yeah. Well, I was actually over here taking notes during, which I do, I'm often over. So if you ever see me looking off, it's because I'm taking some notes. I don't want to forget some things. But I also got a little distracted because I got this headline that came across I don't like the notifications, but I can't turn the one off from CNN. So anyway, it was this prison truck crashed with a cement truck in California, and the inmates actually escaped. Now they're looking for 6 hardened criminals. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, and the Energizer Bunny was in there as well. He was charged with battery. I don't like my delivery right now. I got to get more authentic. Anyway, love you guys. You're the best.
Love you guys. Go build a bridge.
All right. See you in the next episode. Peace.